Good morning, and welcome back to many of you who are here for the wonderful auction event last night. I'm Joanne Jessen, a member of the Board of Trustees at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. Whether you are on Zoom or here in the church sanctuary, we are so glad you are with us this morning. No matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify and whomever you love, know you are welcome here. We have a few special announcements this morning. Judy Palazzati is going to talk to us about the Christmas tree in the foyer. Judy?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As Joanne said, I'm going to be talking to you about holiday gift cards for kids from Cornerstones. I'm on the board of directors for Cornerstones, representing UUCR. And so let me first of all read a message from them. Financial hardship and homelessness are hard on children and families, and the holiday season can be especially difficult. For families in need, often there isn't enough money for gifts. With your support, our youngest neighbors will be able to celebrate a fulfilling and memorable holiday in 2022. Cornerstones will once again be providing gift cards to the parents of nearly 1,500 local children this year to enable them to purchase exactly what each of the children wants and needs for the holidays. Children ages 0 to 10 will receive a $50 gift card, and kids 11 to 18 will receive $75 in gift cards. The Christmas, you might have noticed walking in, we have a Christmas tree, and I want to thank Carolyn Ewart for that, and also Carol Fife and Cheryl Harlan, who helped decorate it. So the Christmas tree in the foyer contains tags for 15 children, and there are 2 tags for each child. Members can take a tag and purchase a gift card from either Kohl's, Target, Walmart, or Amazon. They must be actual cards, not e-cards. Please sign in. There's a sign-in sheet right next to it. Please sign in when you take a tag. Return the cards before December 8th to UUCR in an envelope with the child's name and number. They are on the tag, so on the tag it says the child's name, number, age, store, and amount. As I said, there's 2 for each child because we broke it down into $25 increments for the younger children and $25 and $50 for the older children. And you can return them to the office in the return slot or to me on Sunday service or any other time that you happen to see me at Juliet's or wherever between now and December 8th. We appreciate your generosity during this holiday season. And I'll be available with the little tree outside after the service for any other questions. Thank you.
Good morning. 2 quick announcements. Kathy, where are you about last night's auction? Come on forward. She and Hannah did let's give her a round of hands. We, of course, never do money changing in the temple, but we want to know how much we did.
We did a little over 20,000, which is more than the last 2 years. And I want to thank everyone who attended. All sales were updated last night. Thank you, Meagan, in the system, so you can go in and look at your statement. There's still some physical items in the boardroom. I will be dealing with them after the service. If you think you want something and you're not sure, you can come see me. Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you, Jesus, for Nevada. Of course, we never do politics in church, of course. But Tim, we're not done yet with You Youth Vote. Come on up. Tim has done just a wonderful job. And one more month of important work in Georgia.
As many of you know, the Georgia Senate race has gone to a runoff. UUCR will continue working with the Center for Common Ground to increase voter turnout in Georgia. We will be sending postcards until November 23rd, and there will be opportunities to phone bank until the day of the runoff election. If you're interested in helping get out the vote, contact me, and I can try and answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
And again, this is a nonpartisan effort to get people to vote. Okay, Joanne, come on back up. Get us started.
Okay, there are just two more quick announcements. Children's choir practice will be held at 11:30 today here in the sanctuary. And also, please sign up in the East Foyer to donate food for Helping Hungry Kids. On December 4th, our children will be packing food for local elementary school children who lack enough food on weekends and during school breaks. Our goal is to pack 100 bags, each containing enough food for 6 meals and 2 snacks. And Helping Hungry Kids has asked us to provide the food. Please support our UUCR children, neighbors, and the Helping Hungry Kids organization, co-founded by UUCR member Connie Laurent Roy, by bringing food donations by Sunday, November 27th. Okay, let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. And let us enter our time of worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude.
poet Brian Andreas. It's not what you first think. There is no effort of will, no firm resolve in the face of this thing called living. There is only paying attention to the quiet each morning while you hold your cup in the cool air, and then that moment you choose to spread your love like a cloth upon the table and invite the whole day in again.
Good morning. Our opening hymn is number 322. Thanks be for these. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, 3, and 5. If you are at home on Zoom, the words will be in your chat box. We hope you will sing along. And here in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing. Thanks be for these life's holy times, moments of grief, days of delight, triumph and failure intertwined, shaping our vision of the right. Thanks be for these, for birth and death, life in between with meaningful, holy becomes the quickened breath. We celebrate life's interval. Thanks be for these ennobling art, images welcome to our sight, music caressing ear and heart, inviting us to loftier height. Thanks be for these we celebrate, sing and rejoice, our trust declare, press all our faith into our fate, bless now the destiny we share.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As we light this morning chalice, we welcome you to this place, to this religious community, to this sanctuary where people of all ages and stages of life may grow in spirit and in truth. Welcome to this place of light and hope and vision. Join us in this place where today we may find there is power in kindness and gentleness, that generous commitment is its own reward, that life will bring more happiness if lived in peace. The belief here today is that people of kindness, generosity, peace, honor the inherent worth of every person, seeking for all justice, equity, and compassion, with our belief in our democratic processes to make what a glorious day today is for America.
Amen.
It is with our current wonderful situation where we hope those efforts of kindness will continue to be done with faith for the future.
Love is the spirit of this church. You will find the words in the chat box if you are at home. Here in the sanctuary, we invite you to remain seated and sing together.
Good morning. Now is the time for all ages, so if you're feeling young of body or young of spirit, we have a little space on the floor and you can come on up. Welcome. Wonderful to see you all, and wonderful to see so many people after our big event last night. Our story today is from a Jewish wisdom tale, and it's based on adaptations from Margot Zamak, Christy Olson, and Jessica York. Once, there was a farmer who lived in a tiny little hut with his wife, his mother, and 6 children. It was very noisy and crowded, especially in the winter when people couldn't get outdoors much. One day, the children were all arguing with one another. The farmer was arguing with his wife and his mother, and the farmer felt like he just couldn't take it anymore. It was a horrible situation, and he had to do something about it. So he decided to go talk with the town rabbi. The rabbi is a religious leader, kind of like Reverend Scott.
Only smarter.
Well, this rabbi, not sure about this, but this rabbi was considered very, very wise. So the farmer thought if anyone could figure out this solution, a solution to this problem, it would be the rabbi. He went and talked with the rabbi and told him, "My house is so crowded. I can't take it anymore. What should I do?" The rabbi thought for a while and then said, "Do you have some chickens?" The farmer said, "Of course I do." The rabbi said, "What you should do is bring the chickens into your house." The farmer thought this was odd and wasn't sure about this, but the rabbi was supposed to be very, very wise. So he followed the directions and brought the chickens into his house. And what sound do chickens make? Good. Well, there was clucking and flapping of wings in the house. And I wonder if we can all see what that house might sound like. And a few directions first. When I go like this, get louder. If I do this, get softer. And when I do this, stop. Okay? Ready? So what would those chickens sound like? Oh my goodness. Did that make it better? No, it didn't. Well, there are different perspectives, but it wasn't any quieter. So, well, the farmer decided to give it a few days, but he got to a point where he couldn't take it anymore. So he went to the rabbi and said, "What should I do?" The rabbi looked surprised and thought a while and then said, "Do you have some goats?" The farmer said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Bring those goats into your house." The farmer wondered about that, but the rabbi was a very, very wise person. So he did that. He brought the goats into the house, and the goats started baaing and butting their heads onto the wall. And I wonder what the house sounded like now, with chickens clucking and flapping their wings and goats baaing and butting their heads. So let's try that. You can cluck or baa or go back and forth between them. Okay? Oh my goodness. Well, the farmer tried to put up with that for a few days, and he thought, no, this isn't working. And he went back to the rabbi, and he said, Rabbi, I've done what you said, but the house is more crowded and more noisy. What should I do? And the rabbi thought for a while, and then said, do you have a cow? The farmer, yes, you're thinking maybe he should have said no, right? Well, the farmer decided to trust the wise rabbi, and he brought his cow into the house. Now there was clacking and flapping of wings and baaing and butting of heads, and what sound is a, there were moves and trampling and breaking things. So now I wonder what that house sounds like with the chickens, the goats, and the cow. Let's try that. Wow, the farmer was overcome with all that noise in the crowd, and he rushed back to the rabbi and said, oh, this absolutely isn't working. It is noisier and more crowded, and my home is now beginning to smell like a barn. What should I do? Well, the rabbi thought and thought and thought, and then said, what you should do is take the cow and the goat back to the barn and the chickens back to their coop. So the farmer went back and did that. And while he was taking the cow and the goats back to the barn and the chicken to the coop, the rest of his family started tidying up the barn, or the house rather. And when he was finished, the house smelled and looked nice, and the entire family agreed that it was roomy and it was the quietest and most comfortable home anywhere. So I wonder what this story might tell us. We'll talk some in religious education, and I think Reverend Scott may have some perspectives on this. I hope all of you will talk together after the service. We will now sing the children downstairs with Go With Joy. And the lyrics are in your order of service and will be projected on Zoom.
So now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are this morning. As members of the present congregation come forward, take stones and place them in the water which holds so much of our love, and perhaps they will take a stone from around the vessel to remind them of what's on their heart this morning. And if those of you at home on Zoom would like to write your joy or concern in the chat box, please do so, but remember that that becomes public. And now let our ritual begin on this Veterans Day when so many of us are thinking about veterans we have known and all the millions of people who have sacrificed for our nation. Let us be one in spirit and affection. Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates this creation, we are grateful for this community that is with us in both difficult times and sorrowful and joyful ones. We hold in our hearts this morning all around the world who are facing hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving loss or facing illness or disability in themselves or those around them. In particular this morning, we hold in our hearts Bob Howard and his wife Marjorie Lane, who is with us this morning, as they face Bob's difficult final days. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all who gather here, either remotely or in person, find comfort and reassurance and calm. Amen.
As a self-funded church, UUCR relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us and others now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and music programs, our religious education program, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. Typically, on the second Sunday of the month, we hold a special collection to support a charity selected by the Social Action and Justice Committee. This month, we are instead asking congregants to consider supporting the Cornerstone's Holiday Gifts for Kids program. Please visit the Christmas tree in the foyer after church today to see the gift request. Your generosity and support can help make holiday wishes come true for children in our community. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation in the collection plate if you are here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box. Thank you for your generosity and support of our beloved spiritual home.
This morning's reading before the sermon comes from the Reverend Chuck Swindoll, and who is a Christian minister and inspirational writer with whom some of you may be familiar. His observation about the importance of our attitudes in life is the focus of my sermon this morning. He writes this: "The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts on the ground. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failure, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance or giftedness or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home." And then he goes on, "The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string, Tim, that we have, and that is our attitude." And then he concludes with his famous conclusion: "I am convinced that life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is," he concludes, "with you. You are in charge of your attitudes." Here ends the morning reading. So I'm going to talk this morning about this complicated drama called life, which we find ourselves in, and the attitudes we bring to it. For I am persuaded, as Chuck Swindoll is, that how we emotionally react to life, that is the attitude we bring to all the little and big stuff that happens to us, can make a vast difference in how successfully we navigate our lives. Let me start with a little example of what a big difference attitude can make from my own life, if I will. This is me in Costa Mesa, California, starting out on my first of 5 charity rides across America, 3,000 miles in 30 days. This was in 2005. I just couldn't get this out of my system. I'm proud to say that on these rides, I raised over $250,000 for charity. These were very meaningful events to me. But the first long ride I took across America, I enjoyed almost all of it, but one of the things I truly hated was when I got a flat tire, which happens 20 or 30 times on a ride like this. Sometimes out west, where these little wires from the truck tires are everywhere on the side of the road, I'd have 2 or 3 a day. And I hated, here's some of the riders I was with, some guy, I took this picture, I don't know who this was, trying to get the damn wire out of the tire so he could get going again. I would hate it. Whenever I felt my bike acting funny and I looked back on the rear wheel and there it was flat, or I heard a pop, I just hated that. The road gods got the better of me. And so I'd get off the bike and I'd gripe my way through getting the wheel off, checking the tire for the puncture, swapping out the tube, inflating it, checking for any pinching against the rim, which if you didn't catch, you'd have an immediate flat again, put the wheel back on the bike, clean the grease and grime off my hands, and finally get back on the road again. Every time a flat came my way, I was pissed off. The point here is that I allowed myself every day on that ride to be miserable for at least 15, 20 minutes a day. But 3 years later, when I decided to do this again and was planning my second charity ride across America, I said to myself, sitting in Bethesda, Maryland, now what spiritual practices can I bring to the ride that will make this more fun than the last time I did it? And what those spiritual attitudes were, one of my spiritual practices was I promised I would say hello to everybody I passed on the bike, everybody, cows, horses, people, whether it's a woman in a stroller in Kansas or a farmer leaning up against a fence. When I went by, I'd say, yo, or hi. The other spiritual practice that I decided to do was I decided I could enjoy my flats. Now, what did I mean by that? What I meant was every time a flat tire occurred, I said to myself, oh, wow, an opportunity to get off my bike, take a little rest, chat up my fellow riders who are helping me change the tires, look around at the scenery. This is an opportunity, not a miserable, crappy little thing. This is an opportunity to don't rush, do a Zen kind of thing. Enjoy that 10 minutes, do a Zen kind of thing. Go into it. You've got all day to ride. Lunch will be there. The motel hasn't burned down overnight, the one you're going to stay in. So embrace this interruption as just one more interesting, enjoyable piece of the day. Now, this may seem corny to you, but you know what? It worked. The attitude I brought to it changed the experience. And so when I shared this sermon with the other riders before we left, I said, we can enjoy the flats. And they all laughed at first, but some of them took it to heart. Look again at the words of Chuck Swindoll. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude. Attitude is more important than facts. Life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. I think Swindoll is spot on. And sometimes I even risk sharing this conviction with others. For example, just the other day, I walked into my neighborhood 7-Eleven in DC to get a Diet Coke, and I couldn't help, and there were 2 or 3 people in front of me, and somebody said to the clerk, how you doing? And she said, I hate Thursdays. I'm having a terrible day. I can't wait till 2:30 when I get out of here. And then she said the same thing to the next customer, and the same thing to the next customer. So when I got to her, I just couldn't help myself. I said, how you doing? And she said, I hate Thursdays. I can't wait to get out of here. And I couldn't resist myself. I looked at her in the eye and I said, life is 10% of what happens to you, and 90%, ministers are terrible. They're full of platitudes. And 90% of the attitude you bring to it. And much to my surprise, she looked at me like I'd hit her with a brick. And she said, and then I said, sorry, I suppose you weren't really looking for a sermon this morning. And she said, actually, thanks. That's the best thing that anyone has said to me today. I guess I can look at this Thursday a little differently. She, honest to God, said that. I left the store not knowing, of course, if she would, as her day moved on, actually succeed in that internal conversation about not making herself miserable. But I can always hope. All right, enough stories. What I'm talking about here is that when I say we are all free to choose our attitudes, 90%, on any given circumstance, the 10%, what I am not talking about is optimism. Positive thinking is choosing by way of your attitudes to make the best of every situation, no matter how difficult and demanded. Optimism, to my way of thinking, is the sunny belief that everything is going to work out. That's not what positive thinking is. Positive thinking is not the conviction everything is working out. It's that we will make the best of whatever the situation is. Even if it's chronic disease or disability or a persistent problem in your marriage or your work, it's doing the best you can with what you've got. Yep, pages are sticking together today. Do you want proof? Well, I have it. No less from an authoritative source than the psychological researchers at Harvard University, which you all respect. Here, well, some of you do anyway. Here are the summary findings of Harvard Study of Adult Development, a 60-year-old longitudinal study that has followed the lives of 824 men and women from adolescence to their elder years in order to learn what successful aging is and how it can be achieved. As the Washington Post reported, this study reveals, quote, if you want to live to a healthy old age, it's going to take more than diet and exercise. What also counts, Harvard says, is your attitude toward life, and your attitude toward those around you. It seems the researchers have found that if you can forgive, be grateful, reach out to others, and keep your sense of humor, your elder years should shine. And then the article goes on to spell out specific findings of the study. They identified 2 types of elderly persons. Next slide. The happy well and the sad sick. You have to go to Harvard to think like that. The happy well people are people who celebrate life and continue to love and learn from those around them. And the sad sick are those who are ill and in a spiral of self-pity and decay. I suppose there are some people in the middle also. This study revealed that, quote, it was social aptitude, something we also call emotional intelligence, not intellectual brilliance, not parental or social class, that leads to a well-adapted old age. And again, the study found that, quote, a person could be afflicted with the physical vicissitudes of old age and still be happy. The director of this study, George Vaillant, gives an example of a man he called lucky, who at the age of 70 had high blood pressure, arterial fibrillation, a cardiac pacemaker, pancreatitis, and was recovering from back surgery. All that to bear, yet Lucky, the study reports, had no complaints. He was happily married, ran 2 successful businesses, and always made time for his family and friends. He was always grateful for his life. He certainly was ill, Vaillant reported. He was ill, but he was not sick. And then Vaillant sums up the 4 key character and attitudinal qualities of his study. The 4 which contribute to successful aging. First, the ability to anticipate and plan for the future. 2, a capacity for gratitude and forgiveness. 3, a capacity to love and hold others empathetically without clinging too tightly. And 4, the desire to connect with people and not harbor resentments, Mr. Trump. And then he concludes, these attitudinal factors about one's own life are more or less controllable. So our fate lies in ourselves, not in our stars. 10% of what happens to you, 90% of the attitude you bring to life. Now, these Harvard studies about how to age well really don't surprise any of us, do they? Oh, sure, we've all at some point or another taken an intellectual pot shot at old Norman Vincent Peale and his simplistic doctrine, you all know it, the power of positive thinking. I mean, sure, we all realize that the habit of looking on the bright side, we're going to sing that song at the end of the service, can only take us so far when we bump up against real, deep adversity or difficulty in our lives. Anybody who's been around this life for a while and had suffered at the hands of its inevitable hardships and adversities knows that a positive attitude about life cannot fix or change everything for the better. That is the limitation of optimism, which we've already discussed. No amount of positive thinking is going to take away a tough cancer out of your body. No one is going to wake up whistling cheerfully, for example, the morning after the death of a loved one, or the day after getting laid off or fired at work, or receiving a tough medical diagnosis. Positive thinking, as useful as it can be, has very real limits. We can't successfully move through life simply by continually thinking good thoughts and plastering a broad smile or a smiley face bumper sticker on our car. And sometimes a lot more than cheerful positive thinking is required to get us through one of life's inevitable tough spots. But with all that said, who in this room or at home seriously doubts the spiritual and emotional efficacy of positive life attitudes? Now, you all know people among your family, friends, and coworkers who are inclined toward positive thinking and behavior. These are the habitually upbeat people who are fun to be around, generally move through life with good and generous and creative energy. And similarly, you all know some people who are habitually negative thinking and attitudes and behaviors. Eeyore! Eeyore, did any of you think of him before I mentioned him? Like Eeyore, you know people like this who Winnie the Pooh's chronically sad sack friend with their own, you know these people with their own perpetual little clouds of negativity and impending doom hovering right over their heads just for them. People with this negative bent who, because of their dreary attitudes, manage to spiritually and emotionally shoot themselves in the foot, and they are generally no fun to be around. May I see a show of hands? All right. Now, diving a little deeper into all of this, based on everything I have learned and observed about people over my lifetime, I don't think there can be any doubt that some people are predisposed by powerful determinants like personality, brain chemistry, and parental upbringing toward being positive and hopeful, just as much as another group of people are predisposed toward the negative and the pessimistic. Take me, for example. Guess which side of the equation I fall on? I am Norman Vincent Peale's irritatingly positive nephew. I can't help this positive bent of mine. First, I know that if there is such a thing as optimistic genes, I was born with them. To make matters worse, I come from a happy, loving, secure Wisconsin upbringing in an optimistic, can-do, cheerful family. As a result of my genes and my parents and my family, I find it easy, even when I find myself amidst real adversity and unpleasantness, to somehow get through. The director of that Harvard study I quoted confirms that being blessed with a safe and secure childhood is how optimists are made. And he also points, and this is really good news for us, that even people who had negative and painful and even brutal childhood experiences, people find themselves with a natural pessimistic bent, can overcome with practice their predilection toward negative thinking. He writes, I was astonished at how much of an older person's healthy aging and lack of it is predictable by patterns already established before the age of 50. And what seemed even more astonishing was that these factors are more or less controllable. The past can predict, but never determine, how we are in old age. A happy childhood is certainly a plus, but even people with unhappy childhoods can change their lives and learn to embrace life by allowing other people into their lives. It isn't the bad things that happen to us that doom us, he explains. It's the good people who happen to us at any age that can facilitate enjoyable old age. Now, you have to let these positive people into your life. The fact is, they can change the way you are. So, while genetics, personality, and upbringing, and early life experiences can and do shape us in terms of our inclination toward positive or negative thinking and attitudes, the good news from no less than Harvard and other places who are studying this is that we are nonetheless capable, as free and volitional creatures, to regularly choose or bend or somewhat steer our thinking and our attitudes and reactions about what happens to us in life toward a more positive and constructive direction. As further evidence of this, psychologist Dr. Martin Seligman, in his wonderful and practical book, Learned Optimism, some of you know this book, it's fairly old, How to Change Your Mind and Life, affirms what Harvard does. He says, we human beings have a great control over our positive and negative thinking. And here he has three things that move to the next slide. He says, I have been studying pessimists and optimists for 25 years. The defining characteristics of pessimists is that they tend to believe that bad events will, 1, last a long time, 2, will undermine everything they do, and 3, are their own fault. But then he also says that optimists who are confronted with the same hard knocks think about misfortune in the exact opposite way. They tend to believe, 1, defeat is just a temporary setback. 2, that its causes are confined to this one case. And 3, it's not their fault. Such people, Seligman goes on, are unfazed by defeat. Confronted by a bad situation, they perceive it as a challenge and will try harder. And Seligman goes on to assert that, quote, these two habits of positive or negative thinking have consequences. And he goes on, literally hundreds of studies show that pessimists give up more easily and get depressed more often. These experiments also show that optimists do much better in school, at work, or on the playing field. A pessimist attitude, he goes on, may seem deeply rooted as to be permanent. I have found that pessimism is escapable. Pessimists can in fact learn to be optimists, not through mindless devices like whistling a happy tune or mouthing cheerful platitudes, but by learning a new set of cognitive skills. 35 years ago, I had a parishioner in Plainfield, New Jersey. Her name was Eva. She's long gone. She had terrible arthritis in her hands. I preached a sermon on Seligman's thought, and I just couldn't wait till the reception line. She was always a pessimist, always had something negative to say, never looked on the bright side. So she comes in the reception line, and I grabbed her hand very gently, like I always did, and she said to me, "That's easy for you to say." And I laughed. I looked at Eva and I laughed. And then she looked at me and she started laughing because she realized the unproductiveness of her saying to me, "That's easy for you to say." What Seligman is talking about here is the power of those internal conversations that we are free to have with ourselves about shaping attitudes in any given situation when things like a bicycle flat tire or any unwelcome illness or difficulty intrudes in our lives. Habits of thinking, he writes, need not be forever. Individuals can choose the way they think. They can learn a new set of cognitive skills that will free them from the tyranny of pessimism and allow them to use optimism when they choose. And then Seligman goes on to suggest that learned optimism is simply a matter of ABCs. Don't you love these self-help books? ABC, here they are. A, these are the ABCs of positive thinking. A, when we encounter adversity, we react by thinking about and in our thoughts. B, rapidly congeal into beliefs. And these positive and negative beliefs may become so habitual, we don't even realize we have them until we stop and focus on them. And they have consequences. These beliefs are the direct cause of what we feel and what we do next. They can spell the difference between dejection and giving up on the one hand, and well-being and constructive action on the other. And then Seligman gets to the core affirmation of learned optimism. And it is the idea I want to leave with you today. He suggests that when we have pessimistic beliefs and attitudes about some event of adversity or difficulty, we are free to dispute our own negativity. We are free to dispute our own negativity, engage in internal disputation with our own ideas and attitudes about what's happening to us. I quote him again. Rather than ducking our disturbing and negative beliefs, a more lasting remedy is to dispute them, to engage them and dispute them. You must learn to argue with yourself, he writes. Give your negative beliefs an argument. Fight back. Go on the attack by directly and effectively disputing the pessimistic beliefs that follow adversity, that this bad event will last a long time, and it's going to undermine everything, and that it's your fault. You can change your customary reaction from dejection and giving up to activity and good cheer. Similarly, as many of you know, there are many therapists and several schools of therapeutic thought, like cognitive behavioral therapy and cognitive restructuring therapy, and you can find out more about these online. Cognitive behavioral therapy, look it up. These therapeutic approaches suggest that if people are unhappy with aspects of how they habitually react to situations, that they can, by choosing to first change their actions and their behaviors, eventually change their thinking and their feelings in ways that will bring them more satisfaction and success in their life. One of the affiliate ministers from the Vero Beach congregation that I recently served, the Reverend Dr. John Brown, who he's a United Methodist guy that we attracted to our church. He gave an example of this in a sermon he preached last year, just before I left, 2 years ago, I guess, when he urged everyone to begin each day by trying to find something to smile about. A simple, smiling, simple, concrete, physical behavior can lift your mood for the whole day. And as it turns out, there's real science behind this idea. One study puts it that the simple physical act of smiling, of animating your own face with goodness and cheer, can, quote, trick your brain into happiness and boost your health. Have you ever found this? Who was it? Norman Cousins or someone who was very ill. He started watching the Three Stooges as a therapy for himself, and he found his whole mood was lifted when he was laughing at the Three Stooges. You know how they go. Science has shown the mere fact of smiling can lift your mood, lower stress, boost your immune system, and possibly even prolong your life. And there are countless other examples which psychologists and other scientists cite, which indicate that we human beings are capable in many ways of bringing positive change to our lives, including changing the structure and the structure of your own personality. You are not doomed to any personality necessarily, though they are pretty persistent things. Dr. Seligman's assertion that we can learn to be more positive in our thinking is backed up by many, many psychologists who believe that choosing to change one's thought patterns and behaviors can lead to positive changes in your mental health. This is the smile when you don't feel like smiling, take a walk when you don't feel like taking a step, go out to social events when you don't feel like company, school of thought about how to improve the way you feel in your life. And this makes more than a little sense to me. You can help to turn your own life around. Now look, I know that more than a few of you are at least somewhat suspicious of this assertion that Dr. Seligman and others and behavioral therapists are making, that we are free to control and choose and direct our attitudes and beliefs, especially when adversity really knocks us for a loop. But I think nonetheless that they're onto something of profound spiritual importance I ask you at least to consider. I believe that regardless of however you are personally disposed in a negative or a positive direction, pessimist or optimist, that you can at least somewhat steer the camber of your heart toward more positive beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts. And I believe that much of your spiritual and emotional health and physical health is dependent upon you trying. So the bottom line, my friends, is I believe Norman Vincent Peale and Chuck Swindoll are right. Life can substantially be understood as being 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. Positive thinking, choosing the best attitude you can about the things that inevitably happen to you, can make all the difference in the world, can make all the difference in your internal world. So remember, a lot of scientists think you are free to have internal conversations with yourself and shift your attitudes in the best possible direction. This is really the power of thinking positively. And I end by wishing you simply have a good day. Amen. Favorite hymn?
Singing our closing hymn today, I wanted to thank our guest musicians, Meagan Pitluck-Schmitt for playing the piano for us, and Timothy Norton for the beautiful guitar music. And shortly we'll be hearing from Peter Lubitz also on the mandolin. So thank you all so much. Our closing hymn is number 128, For All That Is Our Life. If you are at home on Zoom, the words will be in your chat box, or here in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and join us.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again.
Our postlude today is Keep on the Sunny Side, a song made famous by the Carter family. So the words will appear, I believe, on a slide right here to the chorus. Reverend Scott and I are going to lead with the verses, and we hope you all will join in on the chorus when we get there. And thanks again to Peter for playing with us.
There's a dark and troubled side of life. There's a bright and sunny side too. Though you meet with the darkness and strife, the sunny side may also find you. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all the way if we keep on the sunny side of life.
Oh, the storms and its fury broke today, crushing hopes that we cherish so dear. Clouds and storms will in time pass away. The sun again will shine bright and clear. Join us. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all the way if we keep on the sunny side of life. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all the way if we keep on the sunny side of life. One more time. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all the way if we keep on the sunny side of life.
We invite our congregants attending worship on Zoom to join us for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor coffee hour today to discuss the service theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. The link is in the chat box and will be on a forthcoming slide. Those here in the sanctuary are invited to join us for coffee, tea, and fellowship, and maybe some sweets left over from last night out in the foyer. We hope you will also use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message of appreciation about this worship service. We're going to leave the chairs set up as they were at the beginning of the service. So we ask that you do not stack the chairs. And don't forget to stop by the Christmas tree in the foyer. Judy Palazzati will be there to answer any questions you have about the Cornerstone's Holiday Gifts for Kids program. Have a good day.